So we just got finished watching Vertigo.
Vertigo.
Yes. Initial thoughts?
I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. This movie was obviously well done because it is Hitchcock, but a lot of the filming was very subtle, but there were a lot of clues that Hitchcock lays out through camera angles and lighting, and this is my second viewing of the movie, and I picked up on more things this time that I had no idea before, my initial viewing. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've never really been a big Hitchcock fan. I saw North by Northwest and didn't really like it all that much. But this movie might have actually won me over, so I'm looking forward to watching Psycho afterwards.
I've seen this movie before, and I believe I liked it the first time I saw it, and I saw it again. And, yeah, I mean, I like this movie. I like, especially, of course, the clever way in which things work out in the end, and the twists, and Hitchcock's outstanding way of sort of melding everything together with, you know, outstanding characters and outstanding writing, but also sort of a genius eye for making the ending more complicated than you would ever expected that it's going to be. But tying everything together very, very nicely, and so the movie just works out very, very well.
Vertigo is obviously a very unconventional thrill.
First half of this movie plays out sort of like a Victorian ghost story. You know, it's a lot of old creaky houses and a lot of sort of snooping around and paranormal type, you know, paranormal type storytelling, and it's very, very compelling for the first half of the movie, because it's not so much the hard-boiled detective work that you get in a lot of Hitchcock films or you know, people run away. It's a very unusual sort of ghost storytelling that is not very typical Hitchcock. And then the movie takes a sudden jarring turn back to sort of the Hitchcock that we're used to, with deceit and lust and all those classic Hitchcock adjectives would show up in a lot of his movies, and definitely show up in this one in the second half, and he sort of brings you right back when you least expect it, because by the time that it does that dramatic turn, you're sort of accepted that there's probably, or there might be, paranormal activities actually at work.
You're going through the story through the eyes of Ferguson, but then when Madeline dies, you suddenly see Judy's point of view, and it goes from following Ferguson to seeing both sides.
Do you think that maybe that could have something to do with the fact that, I mean, like, Madeline isn't really a person until the Madeline character dies and becomes Judy?
Yeah, I mean, one of the more interesting things is, at the beginning of this movie, I was a little bit uneasy with the Madeline character, because there didn't really seem to be any chemistry between her and Johnny, and yet he, said he was in love with her, and it's something that, in the acting, at the acting level, you don't palpably see that there's any love connection between the two, and then it's not until she dies that suddenly this emerges, and once the mask of the fake person is gone, then you sort of see where the real sickness actually, instead of instead of love, you get this horrible obsession, which is sort of what was really driving it, perhaps in the first place.
Not to get into super psychological here, but I mean, the character of Johnny, he's just come out of a bad accident where he accidentally let a man fall to his death due to his fear of heights. I don't know, he's a police officer, and so he feels, I guess he wants to protect people, and especially after this accident, he sort of feels like he's, weak or incapable of helping others, and so basically he gets hired by his friend to look after this mentally disturbed woman, and I think that some of the attraction probably comes from her, hurt state.
He needs to save her.
That actually reminded me of his relationship with Midge, in that he sort of rejects her, but I think that's almost because, like you said, she's sort of the opposite of that. She's a strong, powerful woman who looks after him, and it's something that's perhaps he needs to feel this sense of dominance almost, I suppose. And you sort of get that, I get that from him in the way he talks and the way he interacts with these different women, is he needs to feel like he's in control, and perhaps not as much in the beginning, but when he starts to spiral downward in the second half of the film, in the scene where he makes Judy dressed up as Madeline again, there's like this sick obsession with controlling the women that he's with. What Hitchcock did with this movie, which I think is pretty remarkable, is he lays out all of the clues very, very quickly. He lays out all of the parts. You get Scotty's agoraphobia, his relationship with Midge, Madeline, her sickness, and so he gets all these parts, but then they don't work out in the way that you think they're going to be. It turns out Scotty's not the main part of the plot. He's technically just a pawn in. He's used as basically a witness to what is supposed to be a suicide, but is really a murder. So he's really a pawn in this game. But then the fact, the unexpected repercussions of his illness and the way that he'd become attached to basically another pawn, a person who was made to play Madeline, that would be Judy. His love for her suddenly spirals off into this other, unexpected consequence of him, sort of losing his mind over her death that never actually happened. And there's all these, everything that you think goes one way is actually either less significant or more significant than you would think.
Personally, I did not really like the ending. I thought it came very, very, very abruptly. I don't know, so much suspense building to that point, and then it's just kind of not the release you're expecting.
Yeah, it's not a very, everything's okay kind of film.
I would say it could perhaps have been intentional. Like we talked about previously, how Johnny seems to have a sort of dominance that he needs, and he doesn't really get resolution from what happens at the end, because you're basically, spoiler alert, you're basically expecting him to kill Judy in his anger, and instead, a nun comes up and scares her and she falls off. And so he doesn't even get to the sort of resolution of killing her himself, I guess.
It's a deja vu with Madeline and Judy. Madeline, just as he realizes that he completely is in love with this woman, she dies, and he can't do anything about it. And then the same thing with Judy. Just as they're getting resolved, they're talking it out, and all of a sudden, everything seems to be okay, and then all of a sudden, she dies. And
did you think they were talking it out? So
yeah, I thought
he was yelling at her.
Well, yeah,
she wasn't really getting much of a chance to talk. He was
look, she didn't get to talk till she was at the top, and then she explained how she loved him, and I think they were going in a good direction. I
don't think so. I think he's going up this the tower, and he's basically
same place where Madeline died.
Well, yes, he's confronting all of his weaknesses. He's becoming more strong in his own mind, and I think he's really relishing that fact. Basically, his anger at Judy allows him to actually climb to the top of the tower and overcome his fear of heights. And I think he's just in sort of an ecstasy of anger.
Mm-hmm.
And I really thought that he was about to basically just throw her off because he can't accept her for being who she is, and he doesn't even get that resolution in.
So, final thoughts. I enjoy Hitchcock, and this is just on par with everything else he's made, and I think the ending was fitting.
Definitely won me over to Hitchcock. I gotta say, the character of Johnny was very, very well crafted. You definitely sort of get, you grow a sympathy for him in the first half, and then as he sort of falls into madness, it's painful to watch, and that's a good thing.
I think it's a great movie, both in terms of Hitchcock's domineering sense of plot, and also his outstanding eye for character. I mean, I think I fell in love with the character of Midge just immediately. She was one of my favorites in the whole film, and throughout the entire film, I loved every scene she was in. Johnny was also great. I mean, those two characters, the interplay between those two characters, I think were just fantastic. Just a very unusual relationship that is portrayed in a very, very realistic way, and I think he did a great job with just. This is a great film all around.
Yes.
Thank you.
Woo.